Hello, everyone, and welcome to State of the Realm. Still a little infrequent as I get used to new time zones, new schedules, and we had Key 3 stuff last week, so we decided to keep that in our priorities. But this week, we are going to be talking about the heavily divisive Forked Tower, the new Baldesion Arsenal equivalent. It's at the end of Occult Crescent, and there's been a lot of discussion, even from people who are enjoying it, about what is right, what is wrong, and the general community sense towards this edition versus something else. So, to do that, I'm one of your hosts, Mr. Happy. Joining me, of course, is Sly, as he usually does. How you doing, Sly?
I'm doing good. How's your Key 3? Any hot scoops stick out in your opinion?
Tactics remake is... we've been expecting that for...
everybody.
But you know what's funny about that? Matsuno retweeted that the Sony State of Play thing, like, earlier that day, and then unretweeted it. So everyone's like, Tactics? And then it ended up actually being the reason. He, like, kind of spoiled it himself. Also, Sonic Racing having fucking Ichiban and Joker in it was another, like, really random highlight for me, because the Sonic Racing game's already pretty good. Sega playing smart this time. They're playing to their strengths this time. Oh, yeah. All right. But since the screen hasn't swapped over, as you probably can tell, we have more guests. While I have finished the Forked Tower, I am but a peon when it comes to these large-scale contents. I simply show up and do my job. We've got some people who help organize groups and are more at the forefront of the strategies and stuff that go into organizing these large-scale raids. First, we have DN's own Lyle. Hello, Lyle.
Hello, everyone.
To give you a second to unmute there. I make them mute before we go on, so. Why don't you do a quick little intro for yourself, Lyle, before I get to our other guest?
Yeah, it's pretty much... I've been playing for a while. You do mention, I think you did say DN. Yeah, I've supported for DN, and I'm probably going back to supporting them this next race, if the Ultimate's coming. But yeah, I've been playing for a long time. Oh, well, not as long as some people, but, Stormblood. I did a lot of Eureka, actually. A lot of Eureka. I think I hosted like every day in ABBA, but now I'm here doing Forked Tower as well with my own set of friends. So
I probably run into an ABBA without even realizing it then, given the number of ABBA runs that I used to do. All right. And we have another guest as well, Keo, but with a Y this time. We had the other Keo on before, Keo with an I. Now we got Keo with a Y. Also, someone who did Chaotic. In fact, I did Chaotic with both of you as well. This is like kind of a second venture with us three.
Hello.
Hi, welcome to the show. Why don't you give us a quick intro as well, Keo?
Well, thank you. I'm Kyo. I started playing like mid to late Shadowbringers, hit max level a little bit before Promise. I'm currently a tank main for Spice Boys, and previously in Endwalker, I was a roaming ninth man. I ninth manned a few teams back then. Yeah.
Ooh. All right, thank you. Well, it's good to have you both on the show, both first timers on the show. We're just going to do a quick little, we'd like to thank our patrons and stuff at the start, and then we're going to get right into talking about Forked Tower, talking about Occult Crescent as well, kind of as a whole. We've had a few weeks to sit on it, I think, so it's worth revisiting the show, some of the show points we had from a couple weeks ago. So thank you to our sponsors over on Patreon. Nobody has to support. We don't paywall anything, but we do have some people who choose to support us over there, so thank you to them. Also, be sure to check the description. Not only do I have the usual SteelSeries sponsor link with the discount code below, but there was a card shop that sent me a whole lot of packs when it came to Magic the Gathering X Final Fantasy. They gave me a discount code for their own store, and they're just a local card shop. They're not, Wizards of the Coast or anything, but yeah, they sent me every commander deck. They sent me collector's commanders to give away, which I still have to ship out. They sent me play boosters, collector play boosters, a starter kit, an Absolute Virtue playmat. I even went back and bought some more cards from them myself. Look, I got Heidelin and Zodiark right there. Look at that. I even got a Surge Foil Xenos in there. Looking nice and shiny. Got plenty of 14 cards, including the 14 Sid. So there'll be a link to that in the description as well in the YouTube video. On Twitch, it's !card shop. They do all sorts of things. And they'll be doing Riftbound as well, which I'll actually be working with them on that as well. All right. So, Fork Tower. It's going to be our primary discussion for the day. A lot of talking points that everyone's been going over, and I know that you two have been talking about it a decent bit in our Discord chat. There's been a lot of discussion, so we just kind of want to take that discussion and move it over here into State of the Realm. So, before getting into Fork Tower, I want both of your thoughts on Occult Crescent, because Sly and I went over it a couple weeks ago. The pluses, the minuses, us yelling about relics being tomes for 30 minutes. If you could give us a once over on some of your general thoughts on Occult Crescent now that it's been out for a few weeks, we could start there.
Yeah.
I knew it. I knew it was going to happen. I was like, they're both waiting to see who's going to go first. I knew it. I knew it was going to happen. All right. Keo, I think you win.
Yeah, I will. So the zone, first off, it's pretty. I like the design. I like all the lore aspects they throw into it. I think a decent number of the CEs are pretty enjoyable. And I think that there are some pretty neat interactions within the Phantom Job systems themselves. I don't feel threatened by any of the mobs in the zone at any point in time, though. So, like, that combined with how there's a limit to, like, one Fate, one Pot Fate, and one CE makes it a little awkward to run around. You can't really go around and do what you want because you're always forced to go to whatever is currently up. Like in Boja, there would be like, you could have like 2 to 3 CEs and a bunch of Fates up at the same time, and you could just pick where to go. Here, everyone's kind of racing, and then you just like watch things die instantly, and that felt a little odd. Overall, I am enjoying the zone and the content. But I feel like there are definitely a few things that could be tuned slightly better, I guess, to make the experience overall feel more exploration-y and less racy.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I wonder if that's part of the reason why they moved away from calling it exploration and now they call them field ops, because they want to move away from that thought process, but they can't really undo what's already been done for those of us who've been around for a while.
Yeah.
And Lyle.
Yeah,
oh, sorry. I didn't know you were going to keep going.
No, I wasn't.
Okay.
I think touching on the exploration, I feel like they sort of like went halfway between the Eureka and the Bozja Zadnor, because it sort of feels like they want you to walk around the zone, but gameplay wise, because it's Bozja Zadnor, there's not really any incentive gameplay wise to walk around the zone. You know, there's a CE, you have to go to it, you walk to it, but like you're never really going there. As a casual, for example, like you'll go there to spawn the CE if you have to kill mobs to spawn it. But I don't know. It's in Eureka you have the sleeping dragon. You actually have to kill a huge number of mobs actually to spawn NM's notorious monsters in Eureka, right? You have to kill like maybe 30 or so to prep it. In this one, you only have to kill maybe 5. So you show up, you pull 5 mobs, you're on cannon air, it takes you a minute, and that it's prepped, right? And then you leave, you go sit in base camp if that's the only, or you go spawn other ones. I mean, that's probably one of my issues with the zone, because back in Eureka, I would actually go around with my friends and we'd just prep every single NM on the map, and they'd all just be queued up, and it'd be, I don't know, I thought it was a lot of fun because you'd go around and do that. But now you kill 5 mobs and it's ready, and you just wait, and they're all queued up for the next hour, and there's not much to do except the Cs.
Yeah, it seems like that they want you to go back and forth between CEs and Fates and popping all the chests, because you can, gaining any currency spawns all the chests. So gold farms also obviously respawn them, but they basically want you to pick one of those two, clear out all the chests, go back to doing one of those two, clear out all the chests. And that seems to be the more direct gameplay loop that they're looking for, alternating between treasure hunting and getting currency. But that's as close as you get to like the exploration is running around for the chests.
Which,
I was
to be
gonna say-
fair, I still have a gripe with because of not being able to profit off of it because they put way too much shit in the
You
loot pool
speak
the
for
chest.
yourself, man. I'm making money. I don't know what you're talking about.
Sure, you're making money off of materia and ribbons and
Dude, I
minions
got
that
an
people already
esoteric gold
have.
piece. I got esoteric gold pieces that vendor for 300k. I got 2 twirly emotes for 4 mil a piece from pots. Like, I don't know about, dude. There's pure white dyes and jet blacks in there too. I've gotten a few of those popping up. So I put like, listen, I haven't made
I've
much
just gotten
money,
ribbons and materia. Ribbons and materia. These
Try
pot
harder.
friends are not my friends.
Just try hard. And not to mention, if you're not carrot hunting, a carrot's like $1.5 million. Like, it's only for, effectively achievement hunters are making that a valuable item because there's no reason for that thing to be worth $1.5 million.
Right.
I think the carrots are at 2.5 now.
Oh my
Can we go back
God. Where's Violent?
forever.
Stop buying them at that. Like,
Yeah, I've
I
sold a
still
few
haven't seen a
carrots.
carrot. Still have not seen a carrot. They don't exist.
tell me how many chests you've opened, Sly, because that'll be a big indicator. Because they also only come from the bronze chests, not the silver chests, from what I've been told.
No golds either.
There's golds are from magic pots. The carrots only come from the open world chests.
Oh, open world pots. Okay. Yeah. See, now that I have the map, I usually make a habit of going between CEs, kind of going to places and just opening chests. So yeah, with all the shit, like I've opened like hundreds of chests. Nothing. I may get like an emote every now and then. Some like really frilly gear. I forget what's called.
Pogo's gear is pretty frilly.
Yeah, that and just materia and ribbons.
Yeah. I don't know, dude. Sometimes I calculate the risk between fates. I'm like, okay, how many chests can I reasonably check before I'm putting myself at risk of missing a fate?
Or missing a CE? Like, because
I won't miss a
give two
CE.
shits about fate.
Magic
Okay.
pots I have to calculate. When I'm helping pot friend over, then I calculate if I'll miss the CE. If I see that motherfucker going northwest, I'm like, nope, I'm going to the CE.
Yep.
Sorry, pot friend.
Nah. Pot
fine.
enemy.
No, pot enemy is up in the north. We have a CE for pot enemy. What? He's pot enemy. The other ones are pot friend. Come on. That's how it's got to be. He's not.
They're all
They're
pot
all
enemies.
enemies.
They're all pot enemies. They fucking hate me.
Yeah. I will say one thing. I wish the pots spawn more because they don't spawn as frequently as bunnies do. And I actually like sitting in Eureka and just bunny farming, like chill. You do it, chill for 10 minutes, and then come back and do another one. This one you really can't because it's like 30 minutes between each of them. So that infrequency is a little less enticing, but I'll be a persistent pal one day. It'll be fine. Just like I'll be a bunny blessed at some point and 997 more carrots. Get there sooner or later. I can't believe, dude. Achievement hunters are really buying those fucking carrots at $2.5 million. I just can't. I understand Gil is largely useless, but it still blows my mind. Oh, man. All right. So those are just some general thoughts on Occult Crescent. But Fork Tower is really the main thing that we want to talk about in this show because this has been a constant battle between the more casual player base who are looking for something like a new CLL, a new Dalriada, something that they can engage with. They don't have to think about it too much. It's not really complicated, and it's a little bit of difficulty. Like in CLL Dalriada, you had those groups that you knew it wasn't happening, especially on the first boss of CLL. But hardcore players also have their own gripes with it. So it's kind of sitting in this weird in-between zone. And as you two have helped coordinate a lot of, the runs that we did, as for those who didn't know, part of the world's second group that I died in and didn't get to actually be a part of the kill because I was stupid. My bad. It's okay. What was there? I gave 1% buff. It counts. I definitely wanted your perspectives because I don't think we've actually had someone who's run field op or large scale content on the show versus people who have just done it. So I thought the perspective, especially with organizing 48 people or attempting to or delegating, would I think it'd be a valuable insight because I think it's really intimidating to a lot of players.
talk on this. I think, at least for me, well, so the way I see it is there's two primary ways you can go about it. The first one is obviously you set up everything. You find 48 people, you tell them what parties they're in, and um, for the next few days, they're just in that party. I think that's, I don't know if that's what AG2 did, but they definitely had everybody, set away a good chunk of the week to do the Fork Tower. For us, it was sort of vibes. I was actually expecting a CLL like, the Delriata or the CLL Lacus Latorum or something. So I think at most I just told people they could take like 1 day off. Some people took 2 days off for their own, for themselves. But so we took like 1 day off, and after the first day, we had 48 people on the first day. After the first day, some people didn't like instance progging, or some people just, they ran out of time. So we had to find more people. And at least for me, I wasn't going to go find, if we lost like 15 people, I wasn't going to go find 15. I don't have 15 friends. Yeah. I don't have 15 more friends than the people who showed up. So I basically just let all of the leads, I delegated all the leads to just manage their own party. And, if they showed up with 8, they showed up with 8. If they don't show up with 8, it is what it is. And luckily, the instance actually scales down. So you don't actually end up bringing a full party of 8, which was very nice. Very nice for us, at least, since we were sort of vibing, and people would show up with parties of 6 or 7 instead of full 8s. But I mean, I guess like more directly on the organization, what happened for us was I found 48 people, I signed them up, I put them in parties based on what I think their relationships were and stuff, and who's okay with being where, and we blasted for a day. We hit level 20, and we went in a few times, and then we went to sleep. And in the morning, I think people just grabbed whoever they could that was level 20, and we just kept going for the next few days. So like it was, I didn't really do too much organization. I sort of just told people, hey, find your friends, and you can bring them if you think they're good enough, and then yeah.
And that persistence, I mean, we can't argue with the fact that effectively it was a world second. Other groups were progging, but as far as we know, unless you found out otherwise since, that's everyone was saying it was second. So I'm just going with that. That alone was enough. So would you say it maybe isn't as intimidating as people think if they just don't think about it on a macro level and think about more of it on a micro level?
I would say so. I guess like touching a little on the difficulty, it's not super difficult as long as everybody knows when they can get a specific mechanic that could, maybe wipe the raid, for example, and they're just aware of it and they do those mechanics correctly. It's pretty much fine to bring anyone in.
All right. That's going to be good because I think a lot of people are still afraid. Like people were afraid with BA for a lot of the same reasons. People waited years before they started joining ABBA runs to get it. They're like, oh, I'm so afraid I'm going to screw it up. I'm going to die and I'm going to be on the ground. But it was like almost everyone after they did it, after it was really scienced out, was like, oh, that was just kind of fun at the end of it.
Yeah, you sort of just get the vibe with your friends in your 8, or if you know everyone, you're yelling the whole time at everybody.
my main apprehension, because like I still haven't gone in, but I've seen like full runs. I've seen people doing. I saw your run, Happy. I saw Zeems's run. I saw so many runs. My main apprehension, and I probably am totally off base, is preparedness, I guess, like in terms of just gear and jobs, because I don't have every job maxed yet. I think right now I'm at 7 right now in terms of strength and whatnot, and I've gotten a few pieces of the gear +1, so I need to do a couple more gold runs. In terms of preparedness, how prepared should you be in terms of gear, in terms of jobs, depending? Because, for example, I'm going as DPS. I'm going as Goon, of course. Again, 7 jobs leveled. The only jobs I have remaining are the gold jobs.
Well,
and Berserker.
Before they interject, I would like Kyo, because one of our runs, Kyo just decided, I'm going to go freelance.
I did ask first. Most people might have not heard me, but I did ask.
Okay.
But listen, he was looking to see if any additional chests spawned the entire time. He was finding a lot of nothing with that, but he was double checking.
Whole lot of nothing. Yeah, but as for like jobs and preparedness, I think, well, we were actually discussing this in one Discord to figure out how few jobs you could bring, but if you like organize properly, you can probably clear with like only like 6 or 8 specific jobs, and like everyone else just plays whatever the heck they want, freelancer even.
Wow.
Because there's a lot of mechanics that look like they can only be resolved by one job. However, there are a lot of ways to work around them with either like base real job kits like tank invulns or whatever else. And there's very few things that are actually blocking you. Like, for example, the traps. If you don't have a thief, you can just like have a tank sprint through with invuln on, and everyone just follows him after he clears it. Or you can like have an oracle toss invuln on someone, or you can just like take turns sacrificing people. You have 3 lives. There's only so many traps. And other stuff like that. Like there was one run we were doing where there's in the third hallway in the west room, there's an ad that takes like 99% reduced damage, and it has like a jillion health. And most people normally use Oracle to doom it. We didn't have an Oracle that run. I don't know what happened, but we didn't have one. So we just had all of our cannoneers and all of our samurais go into that room and pray that our like 5% or 10% insta-kill hit it. And we were in there for like 2 or 3 minutes just waiting for someone to auto-crit and one-shot him. And
I remember that run. I remember which run that was.
But yeah, so like...
I was like...
Yeah, and we were all just standing there waiting for our Phantom Job actions to come back off cooldown. But yeah, and like on the east side, there's a bats room where you're like supposed to use like auto hit stuff like the Ranger ability or the Samurai ability to one-shot them, and it's like you can just have everyone throw all their AoE skills and enough of them will hit that the bats will die. Like it's okay if 80% of your attacks miss. So like you don't actually need high mastery. Like I think when we first cleared, we actually had like half of our raid was like mastery 6 or less. I'm pretty sure, because most people were like busy doing work or sleep when they weren't raiding, or like working on strats. Like Lyle's mastery wasn't very high when we cleared either. I only got mastery 12 like this last weekend after we had done most of our clears. And yeah, so what really matters is just knowing the mechanics and being able to press buttons while you're doing it. It's an alliance raid.
Yeah.
To be specific, I was like mastery 2 with like 2+0 pieces. So I mean, I did not have time to do anything.
Wow.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed there's a lot of people that seem to think there's a massive, because there's a lot you can have done before going in. They think it's things you should have done before going in.
And I'm in that category.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can't conflate the two, because it's not made to be done with maxed mastery and +1 gear and a bunch of failed runs to get sanguinite. They've mastered fragment runs at this point, where what they're doing what they're called it's like hallway swap, where a team finishes a hallway, collects all the loot, goes to the end and dies, and then gets rezzed into the other side of the tower, and then goes and collects those chests to get like 11 fragments. And it takes like 15 minutes to do the whole run for like 11 fragments. So people are doing that. And you could theoretically do a bunch of those, get a bunch of Sanguinite, upgrade everything to +2, but you don't have to do any of that in order to actually be effective in there. In fact, most people who join, they're probably going to be joining pre-established runs wherever they've already figured out the people who need to play certain jobs, and they're just going to tell you to play something that won't get you killed. More likely than not. Like, they're going to say, like, if you trust yourself on Monk, okay. If not, please don't Phantom King. Please don't do it.
Yeah, I feel like it's pretty similar to like mid to late Shadowbringers DRS runs where they have like a core group that knows what they're doing and they'll like pump and they have all the gear and stuff, and then you can just bring in people that like don't have any Bojin haste gear and have like suboptimal masteries or essences or whatever. It's the same thing. Like, as long as you have a job and a Phantom job that like you don't troll on, you're fine.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's different because, I guess Baldessian was kind of, based on like, it was kind of, if I remember, it's kind of set in terms of the actions that you had. Like, pretty much, every role had actions they needed to take. Whereas it's like, well, bring whatever the fuck you want, but just don't die.
I did a lot of BA. I was part of the world first for BA, and I don't really agree with that. I feel like that's how people felt about that early, similar to how you're feeling about Fork Tower now. But realistically, most BAs end up boiling down to somebody's detecting for traps, and that's really it. Everyone else is just kind of fucking pumping at that point. Like, that was really the only single mandatory thing you had to have someone detecting. Like, yeah, sure, you wanted people with like refresh and like healers bringing sacrifices, but there was nothing required. Like, if 48 people never die, sacrifice is not useful. And remembrance is great until it doesn't save your life on that 70% roll. And then it's like you didn't have it in the first place. Like, there's like everything that isn't that was not necessary. I'd say this is more necessary things than BA does, but doesn't feel as restrictive because it's just so easy to meet the requirement. It's for such menial things. You don't need a ranger to pop traps, like he was saying earlier, or to have the accuracy buff to kill the bats. There's solutions around those things that we're kind of just better off as players now. So just making sure I think our Discord labeled 6 points in the tower where if you don't know what you're doing, you can kill every single person very easily. And as long as you know those 6 key things, then you're probably fine.
Yeah, I think anyone, I would encourage anyone to go in. I would recommend maybe, 2 or 3 mastery. But you don't even have to go in on a master job because you actually get XP from completing the tower. You get like about 2,000 Phantom experience. So I think they actually, that sort of encourages people to not go on mastered classes. Although you do want to be at a certain level when you go in, so you have the certain jobs that the actions that you will use inside. Although, for example, Thief, you can probably go in at level 5 when you get your pilfer weapon, because you do need that for a certain point in the dungeon. But you do not need to open locked doors. Although your side of the party might look at you funny if you're not level 6, because you lose like 2 sanguinite, I think. But even then, it's probably fine.
5 at 5 for the first hallway you lose.
It's
you can't
3 for the hidden room and then 2 for the sprint room.
Right, yeah. One only needs the detection and doesn't need to be opened. The other one just needs to be opened. Right, yeah. That's how it is. Okay.
Yeah, once the other side has level 6, yeah.
Yeah, and each job's different. Like, for example, my party in Lyle's group was like we were the utility party. We brought like, I think 7 mandatory jobs or pseudo-mandatory. And it ended up that like we had a Pictomancer running chemist and he didn't use a single potion ever. Like, he was only there for the res, which you get at like level 3 or something. So he could have got like the last level or 2 off of just doing Fork Tower if he wanted.
Yeah. It's not that intimidating. And it's hilarious because I had a comment on one of my videos that was like, it's really weird. I don't know why people do this to themselves, because they're doing it to themselves. They were like, I had my opinion about Fork Tower, whatever, how I felt about it. And they were just like, Mr. Happy, I don't think you understand that unless you're a big streamer or in one of these massive discords that there's no way to do Forked Tower. And it's like, well, yeah, joining a discord to do content is not that abnormal in almost any regard in almost any game. I get that, but being a big creator,
had this
Lyle told me
Lyle
told me no to joining the group. He didn't just be like, oh, he didn't say no. He said if there's an open spot, you know, we'll let you know. But he was like, no, I'm not gonna just make room for the big creator. He doesn't give a shit. He wants to do the raid. He has like obligations. I don't know why people have this thing where they think that like this content is up here and that like it's only accessible to certain people. You just have to give a shit.
Because that's how it felt in the beginning. Because that's how, like, when we were talking about Baldessian when it came out, when it was relevant, that's how it kind of felt in the beginning. Now we kind of understand that, it's not all the big streamers are going to do it. Yeah, they're going to do it. But at the same time, it's for everyone. And that's why we have things like, ABBA and, the other discords and whatnot. So, yeah, it's kind of, history based, I guess, is what I would say.
I'd say we have enough established methods of getting into this stuff nowadays that no one should be considered. The barrier for entry is your own willingness to effectively sign up for a run.
Yeah. That's
kind of it. Like, if you don't want to use Discord, I hate joining Discords for everything. I totally get it. But, it is what
you kind
of
have to.
You kind of have to suck it up and just join a Discord to get to it, because it's not a CLL or a Dalriata where you're probably going to walk in. When we're not in Japan, where they are all just that's what they do in BA. For a while in BA, they were just like, hey, in the zone, everyone want to go? Cool, let's go. Apparently, I think one of the JP like World First members has pugged a Forked Tower or several Forked Towers at this point. I remember he was tweeting about it. Straight up in zone pugged a Forked Tower. Wish we could do that.
I hope we get to
talk about this. And we always talk about how this is kind of, geared towards this kind of content is geared towards JP in terms of, being able to, get in as an instance and instance prog, yada, yada, yada.
Oh God, we haven't talked about instance prog yet.
Yeah, it sucks for us, but JP, they're okay. Like they
hate
they'll
instance
have
prog too. To be clear, Japan
they hate it too, but they'll have less problems
it.
than us.
No. So in Japan, it's actually the opposite part. They have it worse because it's like that's the culture of like just being able to go in and pug, and people are really willing and able. You're more likely to have a sniper in JP because it is a public dungeon. That's the initial name of BA, is public dungeon. And there is nothing stopping you from including that person or joining if you're not in. And that's fine. If that person plays ball, it's actually normally okay for the most part if they know what they're doing. And so they would constantly get people who would join because that's just very normal to join over there. So they very rarely would get their full 48 or like everyone that they zoned in for.
But again, compare, JP sniper to NA sniper, and, we're talking about two completely different monsters.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
I think that's true. You just have the sort of innocent snipers who know they've studied and they want to do the content, and then you have the
I'm gonna fuck around and find out sniper.
Yeah. The day we cleared the first run, we had people who literally just joined. And then, like, in Sage, they were like, LOL, put more ciphers in next time. But, they just died on the first boss.
Yeah, we had a few people actually snipe us, and they just returned once we got in. They literally just, like, ate the slot.
Yeah.
So it actually incentivizes, like, pre-mades to come in with a little less than 48. Although, I will say, letting the sniper thing is kind of interesting, because we had a little undersized run and we had a stranger come in, and one of our parties, I just told them, they can, I let people pick up snipers if they want. I don't want to call them snipers, the curious people come in. I let people pick them up, and they can bring them through until we're at a point where it looks like they're not ready. Then I usually kindly tell them, we're not going to raise you. I don't think you're ready. Right. Well, we usually bring them through.
Take that?
We usually, they usually don't say. Sometimes they don't say anything, so I don't even know if they read my message. But, I mean, we're not obligated to raise them, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, sometimes they just run out of lives by themselves. So that's not really something we can do about anyways. But right, we brought this one person. They got into a party, and that party, they carried that person all the way to the final boss, and they got a clear, and they were fresh. I think they were keyboard warrior them all the way through the entire dungeon. So I mean, it is not. Yeah, I mean, if you have a party that is willing to take you through, they can take you through. It is the content is not. It should not be intimidating as long as you have someone that you can trust to follow. I guarantee you'll probably get through.
Yeah. So I guess the gate would be willingness and, you know, the people you're with. I guess those are the two gates within this content, because, you have to be, one, willing to do the content, and two, say you do on a whim, go randomly. Are the people you are doing the content willing to keep you? Like you said.
Yeah. But keep in mind, this is the equivalent of doing it without Discord necessarily. Like, this is somebody who just went into the zone and joined and then did it. Because, like, that's a rare occurrence that's going to happen, because most of the time the person joining is just going to eat on the first boss and either run out of lives or not get rezzed. Because if you die repeatedly on the first boss, you're telling your group, if you take me further, it's just going to happen again. And then you put yourself at risk of actually wiping. Because the first boss has one mechanic the person can technically screw up. Not lethal if they do. It's dangerous, but it's actually not completely lethal if they put a meteor in the wrong spot. Because the meteors don't one-shot. I've survived a meteor on Bard. So it's not great. It gives you thrice come ruin, which you don't want, because if you get 3 of them, you die. But you shouldn't if only one person is screwing it up. So it's like, there's room for that. But the point is not this. The point is not about the whole public sniper thing. Just don't put people who are doing it on a pedestal that makes it seem unreachable, when the barrier for entry is your willingness to just join a Discord and sign up. Because that really is the end of the barrier of entry if you're concerned about the public runs. We'll talk about the public bit, about whether or not they should have done CLL Dalriada and the juxtaposition between the two a bit later, but just don't put anyone on a pedestal. You can probably do the content.
And I agree with that, but I don't feel like I don't think people are putting, others on a pedestal. I mean, to be honest, y'all are fucking gamers. But let's call a spade a spade. Y'all are fucking gamers. Y'all have been clearing content, clearing difficult content on relevancy, on patch, usually. So it's not really that. It's more, what's the word? How do I phrase this? One, again, it's kind of the willingness. It's kind of the willingness to, being afraid to, fuck it up for the entire raid. That, and like going in fresh, there's always going to be that fear that, you will do something that will probably maybe a 10% chance to fuck up the raid. Like you said, there are 6 mechanics that could possibly fuck the raid if you don't know what you're doing. So you could hit one of those 6 and it will feel terrible. So there's that intimidation factor, but I don't think we're putting you on a pedestal. We already know you're god gamers. Let's call a spade, but it's just, personal responsibility.
Yeah, but they blame others. They're like, we're not you.
See, so if they blame others, that's on them. That's kind of their issue. I'm not speaking of the ones that blame others. I'm just talking about the people, who have apprehensions, so.
I think it's fine for people who want to go in. It's just, if you see a lot of people on the thing, you should probably ask if they're full, or if they're pre-made and they're full. Because like, at least for my group, if we're not full and someone comes up and they ask, "Do you guys have room?" I will bring them. I will let them come in, and we'll put them in a party. And then hopefully the party. I'm not gonna tell the party leader to help them all the way through, but if the party themselves is going to help them through, they can come in, they can get through. Boss 1, we're not going to wipe. They're not going to wipe us, having a new person. Boss 2, there is a possibility that we do wipe, but I mean, it's 2 mechanics, and one of them is you check if you have a tether, and the other one is you get to your spot on time. If you don't trust yourself to do either of them, there is a death wall in the second boss. So you can actually just go into the wall. And yeah, past that, if you're ethical on the bridge, as long as you don't blow up and unstable, like it's completely fine. Like you don't gap close, you don't drop the Falcon if you're on a Ranger for some reason. Actually, you shouldn't be on a Ranger. They'll probably tell you not to be on a Ranger. I think most clear groups are actually banning people from playing Ranger, especially if you're new. So probably don't want to play Ranger if you're coming in new. But the bridge is fine. The dragon, you actually cannot wipe us on the third boss. It's actually impossible. And then past that, you're at the final boss at that point.
Well, also if you have a silence, don't silence the big key guy. That's the only other bit.
Yeah. I mean, worst case, you just go again, or you have to make the healers heal like two of the guys doing raid wights on you.
Right.
But it should be probably fine. But yeah, then you're at the final boss, and I think the final boss, there's only 2 mechanics you can wipe the group on. And again, you can always just die to an auto if you really want to clear, get a clear where you're not alive. But if you want to be alive, you probably should study a little bit. But even then, the first mechanic, you probably won't kill the party. The other one, you can kill people, but yeah, if you know how to not kill people, then it's, there's not, I mean, the entire dungeon, there's not a lot of points where you can actually wipe there are points, but there's not that many points.
If you are following the party, there are very few points where you can wipe the raid.
Yeah. In fact, we regularly just, the party leader gets a number over their head. Every party I've been in, at least, I've been in like 3 different ones. They mark the party leader, and they are a Dorito. You effectively treat them as a Dorito for 99%.
The danger Dorito.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think that should be really reassuring. BA is kind of the same, where if you just follow the one person with the marker, the only exception being the meteor on Ozma, I believe. You have to know to put that in the back of the room or go right or left, whichever the group agrees to, I suppose. And it's kind of the same. There's just like a few points that are like that meteor from Ozma. There's a handful more points. Otherwise, it's largely Dorito raid. And just, and if you die alone, I lost all my lives killing myself on the last boss on the world's second clear, where I got ejected before the actual pull. That was fine. I mean, I didn't keep everyone else from clearing necessarily. My own death wouldn't have even hit the enraged. There were other problems that wiped that were unrelated to me. But if you just die learning and it only kills you, the rest of the group's not going to mind. Because when you actually exit the Fork Tower, if you run out of lives and you hit return, the Fork Tower does retroactively rescale the bosses to the remaining people in there. On the clear that I was a part of, I think we went down from like 45 people to 33 people in the 3 attempts. We had like 5 healers between all the parties at that point. And that was a clear. Like losing 12 people permanently was a clear because it rescales and you're past most of the points that require certain jobs. So there's a lot of flexibility to the tower that you only really realize after you've started doing it a handful of times.
Yeah, and like one of my static members, like he was with us on day 1 and then he couldn't do the rest of the days. I tried to pull him in for his clear the other day and we were doing VOD review of all the fights. When we got to the third boss, I literally said, just put a Dorito on my head and completely skipped talking about it.
Yeah. It's pretty much it. One person needs to know where to move for that mechanic. And I'd say really it's just like the second mechanic is probably the only one where you actually need to pay any attention where the tornadoes go clockwise or counterclockwise. That's like the one big one where it can be variable. Otherwise, it's not really that different between the mechanics. So there's just don't be afraid. Sly, you and anyone else. There's no just get in a Discord. I know joining Discord.
No fear. I'm already in the ABBA Discord and planning to maybe make a run this weekend if I can.
Yeah, they do a lot of different prog points. This was true with ABBA for BA too. It wasn't like, oh, join and you have to know everything and be perfect. They would be like, they would have a learning run and then they would have a clear run or then they would have a farm run. Like they pretty clearly designate what the skill level expectation is. And right now in ABBA, they're not expecting anyone to be masters. They're expecting, people to die on the first boss and, to hopefully just get at least enough fragments and people can get gear. And before we start talking about the individual bosses, I want to say that it's already at a point where if you've got enough people with a lot of mastery in any gear at all, the bosses are getting blasted. Absolutely obliterated compared to week 1.
Because I'm guessing week 1 hardly anyone had gear, or they had
Gear.
like maybe plus ones.
They weren't as brave either, man. Let me tell you, dude, the number of samurais throwing bricks. One of my favorite. Which boss is the one where you can like berserker through a mechanic with like, I think you like warrior berserker or something, and you like berserker through the mechanic to get to take all the damage, and then you just fucking blast with the attack after the rage is over. I know there's something
Take
like
all the
that.
bosses.
Just do that on all the bosses. Yeah, you just eat shit as a warrior, but you take that damage and turn it around and go back. Like, the people who know what they're doing are well and beyond doing insane. Like, it still makes me nervous when I see samurais standing in things with Shirodori, but they're like, oh no, I'm doing this. You'll see people deliberately taking thrice come ruin stacks to keep geo bells up. Like, they're going at it.
We have people failing the Oracle predict just to keep their bell stacks now.
The dot?
Yeah, taking a 50k dot for 30 seconds.
God, that's so funny. Yeah, that's the kind of shit that like people are doing, like with the really comfortable people. And they might die occasionally, like they forget or they do, but it's like whatever. It's like it's still good fun.
It's a way to enjoy, 14 without fully, with a little more tidons, little more tidbits like the add-ons, the actions, because you can do a lot of funny stuff with the actions.
Wasn't
like have someone in your party perma chem feed a Dark Knight?
Yeah, I mean, even dark sub chem feeding themselves is wild, but that's I think we talked about that a couple weeks ago. That's like one of the, because people are like, oh, black mage feeding yourself, and I'm like, dude, honestly, no, because it eats a GCD. But for Dark Knight, that's the juice. Somebody else feeding a black mage is much better, but a Dark Knight can feed themselves really well.
Mm-hmm.
It's people are really creative, Sly. So the hardcore people are like, we don't even do. I think there's like I think the demon tablet is like a 3-minute fight or something now, like a 3.5-minute fight down from like almost 6 minutes. Like people are optimizing
gear and creativity.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
I think AG2 was doing some speed runs. They were killing bosses really fast last night. So if you start,
they were getting.
Once people start getting masters and they start pulling in, a few clearies every now and then, you'll probably not even see the last mechanics of most of the bosses, except boss 2. You have to see everything on boss 2.
Yeah, boss 2 forces you to see all the, like, you don't have to do the last bit, but the last bit's not really that relevant anyway. Yeah, we were annoyed. The one thing that's nice about that, though, is people can stop pressing buttons and just do mechanics, in theory, if they're paying attention. Like, if you're nervous about boss 2, there's a real possibility the whole fight you could not press a single button and you will still get the boss to like 0.1%, like well ahead of the point where it's actually allowed to die. Not if everyone does it, but if you're one person fitting in, you can hard focus the mechanics on that second fight.
But I want to press buttons.
You can, just don't die doing it. Like, if the boss is at 0.1%, don't be like, oh, I gotta hit this positional and then get killed because you didn't like check where the fireball was going or something.
That's why we have True North.
Yeah, you do need it in there, in theory. So, yeah, I mean, look, see, Sheena's talking about a 303 kill on Demon. These were their kill times for the bosses. 3 minutes, 3 seconds, 3 minutes, 41 seconds, 3 minutes, 51 seconds, 4 minutes, 43. Like, Minotaur's a 9-minute fight, and it's at 4:43. Like, obviously, that's with, like, I think that's with 27 samurais, they said. Just throwing massive bricks at the opponents nonstop. But they're still cooking. It can still get faster. It can still improve more. And eventually, imagine with Fort Tower 2, when we get more mastery, more jobs, like, soon, like, you honestly can be, like, a really not hardcore player and perfectly enjoy the content as is. Yes, you'll be skipping a lot of mechanics, which maybe you don't want to do. You kind of want to experience the whole fight. But, again, the people who science this stuff out, really made BA and DRS hyper accessible for everyone. You don't need to be any particular type of player to do the content.
As long as you can play your job and then you hit your P job actions on cooldown, I think it'll be very smooth. Very smooth.
Yeah. Just don't monk off the wall or into a trap or anything, and you're probably fine. Or apparently you can monk behind the demon tablet. Kyo, I think you said that, Kyo. Did that happen to you?
That wasn't me, but I saw it happen.
No.
You're right up
Happened in our
against the
run.
wall and you kick, you will go through the wall.
Oh, God. It's fun. It's fun. It's fun. That's the point. It's fun. All right. So now one other bit that we definitely have to talk about is instance progging. Probably the thing people both doing it and not doing it hate. I think it's already at a point where instance progging is not taking very long for most groups. I think it's winded down, but I think that's because everyone's going to Crystal and Dynamis and NA to do it instead of trying to do it on Ether now. So maybe that's making it a little easier. But are we surprised and or upset at instance prog as a whole, knowing full well that BA had to deal with the same thing?
I think BA had different problems with instance progging because the instance size has went from 144 to 72, which is half. So you can actually only fit one full pre-made into one full pre-made tower run into an instance now. So back in BA, if you had two groups running on the same server, and we didn't have DC travel back then either. I think I'm not super sure. I don't remember, but if you had two groups on the same data center, you could all get into the same instance, and somebody's going in, right? So one of the 48 people are gonna lose out. So I mean, you also have another slew of problems. I won't go into the details of how the instances work and stuff, but it really depends on instance progging. It's easy if there's a lot of people logging into the game and they're coming in maybe at a rate of 10 people every maybe 3 minutes or so, because they'll be filling up the instances that are too filled for you to get in, and you can make a new instance, and that's where your group will get in before all of these people start flowing into the instance. The problem is when lots of people are logging in, like maybe hundreds of people logging in every 3 minutes, right? You're going to spawn this new instance and it'll just like instantly fill to the point where you can't fit your people in. And I think that will probably usually happen around like 9 or so when West Coast is off and East Coast is like finishing dinner, etc. But then when the other problem is when you don't have enough people logging in and you actually have people logging out, which I think starts happening around 11 p.m. or so Eastern, 11 p.m., 12 p.m. These instances that were full are now losing people. And so when you queue in, you're not getting into new instances. You're getting into these old instances that have gaps and stuff. So, I don't know. At a high level, I don't mind instance progging. I actually think it's fun for me to try to game the system. I'm sure people would prefer to play the video game, play 14 instead of play instance progging. But that's for me. That's my opinion on it. I think it's fine. I think it's fun, but I'm sure many people disagree with me.
I think I remember Andu after the world second clear. It might not have been Andu, but it was someone who went, anyone want to go instance prog just for fun? I was like, that's messed up. No.
Yeah, instance progging is not bad and sometimes fun if it's like less than 15 minutes. It's just that like when you're during that rough like peak point, when it lasts like an hour, that's when it's less fun.
I guess the point boils down to, though, is that there's no supporting system to help with it. Basically, you have to be someone who has done Eureka a bunch, understands instances, how the game works when creating new ones, old ones. Lyle said he's skipping all those details, but I know the majority of them, and it's really frustrating when you're trying to get that and like work around the system. He enjoys it, but it can be really frustrating.
Yeah,
But they didn't make a system that supports us getting in as a group. Like some people say just doing DRS like Q. Obviously, that's the more obvious one where it's just its own instance and separate. Then there's also just why didn't they make a queue that 48 people can join and then go into an instance and effectively create a new one as well. There's nothing supporting that. Which would you prefer its own instance, or would you prefer a system that supports us going into an existing instance?
With the current like raid design of this, I think that it needs to be inside of an instance, and I would just like it if they adapted like 24-man QN. Like I wouldn't mind if they reduced it to like instance progging with 2 groups instead of 6.
Yeah, so it's a 24 player raid, not a 48 player raid, to accommodate for the fact that it's a 72 player instance.
I I I don't even mind if you keep it as a 48 player raid, just allow you to queue in as an alliance.
Okay.
Like queue into the instance as an alliance. So you only have to instance prog with 2 groups instead of queuing in with 6 separate groups.
Yeah. I thought about it that way, actually.
I have kind of a different. I think it depends on whether or not you enjoy having snipers in your instance. If we're talking about queuing in to a your own personalized instance of quote DRS versus queuing into a public instance. I think that's probably where the major gripes are going to come from, whether or not you're going to accept people can snipe you. But yeah, if you don't care about snipers, I definitely think the latter option, where I think Kyo was saying, you just queue in as a larger group of people into an instance, and if there's no instance that can hold you, you just make a new one, right? Even if the old one's like 40 out of 72, which is fine. Although it has implications on farming silver and farming gold, etc., which might not be good for the gill sinks, etc. But
Yeah. Kyo, you mentioned that. Sly, did you want to say something before we get to this point?
No.
Because you look like you were ready for something. You mentioned that in the way that it's currently designed, that you feel like it needs to be within an instance. Now, I know what you mean, but do you want to elaborate on what you mean for that for everyone listening?
Yeah, I guess like first off, the reward system, the way the entire reward system around Occult Crescent works requires tickets. Well, there's multiple aspects to it. The first one is the ticket sync. You need a currency sync to enter it, because I don't feel like there's enough incentives to farm currency outside of like just getting the gear. There's nothing to like infinitely grind, I guess. So you need that sort of gill sync in order to get the rewards, especially since the rewards are to pump up your Arcanaut gear even more so. So in order to have a meaningful like ticket system where you can farm the currency while you're waiting or whatnot, it needs to be inside of an instance, and that instance is where you buy the ticket. That, as well as just the fact that it's a more BA styled raid where like all the fights are very simplistic, like Alliance raid level, versus something in DRS or like DRN, where it's the bosses themselves are more mechanically challenging, and there's a lot more like group split up tasks where people have to do different things based on where they are. I think that sort of thing where it's like it is more difficult and more punishing needs to be outside, whereas something that's at this level is needs to be in an instance.
Yeah. So you're saying that if it was harder, then I'd say also the fact that another thing is the fact that you de-level. You speak of other reasons, like de-leveling. Like imagine if in Bozia you losing the resistance rank meant you couldn't do DRS. You had to step out and go into the Southern Front to then come back out to then try that again. Here, kind of the same idea. The fact that you do lose experience kind of forces the facilitation of, hey, as soon as you get kicked out, you can go get the level back without having to rezone or anything like that. So yeah, the systems, I understand the systems, but yeah, the difficulty is the big thing that I've been telling people too. It's that if you won't have anything like slimes at the start of DRS if it's not its own instance. Because that was like, if we had anything like slimes here for the trash, there's no fucking way.
Nope.
The DRS slimes still give me nightmares to this fucking day. Those things were wild. And then Trinity Avowed and Trinity Secret. Yeah, those bosses are way beyond anything that's in Fork Tower.
Yeah, those are like mid to upper extreme difficulty versus like what's in Fork Tower being BA, like regular 24 QN alliance level difficulty.
Mm-hmm.
I think they have an interesting fight design difference between DRS and this one. I think DRS, it was mostly individual mechanics. And so they pumped up the difficulty a little bit because, you only had to worry about yourself mostly. And this one, you still only really have to worry about yourself, but there are a few mechanics that if you mess up, the whole raid does go down.
Yeah, I'd say that's accurate. When you think of Trinity Avowed, you screw up your element, you're going to die, and that might cause the team to reach enrage, but you're going to die, and that's going to be the end of it. So unless you have like a crucial action like a reflect, you're not really affecting anything on any of the bosses. Whereas, anywhere, I'd say there is one thing that you really want to make sure you get right in DRS, and that's the duel. If you're the dueler, you do not want to screw that up. That's definitely the one thing. Yeah, I remember the Minotaur before the last boss in DRS. We wiped like 2/3 of the raid, then we figured out Reflect was how we killed the balls, and we still managed to kill it. It just took like 13 minutes instead. It's like wild amount of time that came with that. But yeah, you're right. But I didn't really thought about it that way with the DRS, that even if you do screw up, it's individual, but the individual demand is a lot higher at the same time. Especially Trinity Seeker and Avowed. Super chess. No matter what you read, like if you gotta figure out how to do super chess for yourself, because otherwise everyone sees you running in with the fucking plus Doom, and you're like, oh, there we go. Here we fucking go again. All right. Okay, so Instance Prog, largely derivative of the difficulty and part of it. Some downsides compared to BA. Do you think the ciphers are a decent enough system for establishing getting in, or do you think that is that better or worse than portals? I guess is really the real question.
I'll be honest, I've only done BA twice, and the only reason I did it twice is because the first time I was tanking the boss and my healers ran over to res another platform, so they got their first clears. Then I died to autos right as the boss died and got pulled out. So I can't really say too much on BA portals. I experienced that way too late for it to be relevant.
I think the portals were okay, but I think having the pavilion with everybody there is definitely a lot more, I would say, more engaging, and it actually helps you avoid snipers better, because you can actually communicate. Okay, you can communicate with them. If they don't communicate back, you can't do anything about that, but you're never going to be able to stop them from sniping in that case in any way. So, in any case. So, with the portals, it was sort of, everybody went off to their own section of the map, and I don't know, it's not very engaging, right? You're by yourself, you're waiting for this thing to spawn. With the pavilion, you're with everybody. You can meme, you can type LFG even though you're in the group for fun. Trip up some people who don't know your name. But I definitely think at least where you are in the map, I think the pavilion is much better. Cypher wise, ciphers are kind of, I don't know what to think about ciphers, because if a sniper wants to get in, they can put in 20 ciphers, they can put in 40 ciphers if they really wanted to. And to guarantee they get in. But I think ciphers are okay outside of that because it sort of incentivizes like, oh, I really want to go do Fork Tower. You can just go play the content. You can get your silver coins, you can get gold coins, you can buy as many ciphers as you want, and you can make sure you get in. Because most people will not pay more than one cipher. Most people will not pay more than one cipher. Some people don't pay any. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's okay outside of snipers.
Yeah, relating to that, something I feel like I would like to see is that entry for the Fork Tower was party based instead of individual based. And like it counted the ciphers you put in as a party, and it just would put your party in if you were in a party.
So you're saying the party should pool ciphers is what you're saying?
Yeah, pretty much. So like if I'm in a party of 6 and there's another party of 2, and all 8 of us put a cipher in, the party of 6 has like 6 points worth of entry, and if theirs gets pulled, all 6 people go in.
Yeah, I can see the reasoning, but because then whether or not you have snipers, just how many spots you have open. In which case, you're not going to do anything to stop. You might talk to them, like you said, try to communicate with them. But if you have 48, that effectively makes it almost impossible to compete with the 48, which is upsetting to the randoms that want to try it. That might be curious, but at least sets that resolve between a pre-made group and someone who wants to get in if there is a spare spot.
Yeah. And I can understand Square's reasoning behind not doing like that, but I feel like it'd be a nice QOL for at least like pre-coordinated groups.
Mm-hmm. Do you think there just straight up needs to be a different way for pre-organized groups to ensure entry in an instance if they happen to be in one? Like that isn't this? Do you think they just need a system in general for that?
I would like it. However, I don't actually think that there needs to be a system for it because the only time it's really relevant is during prog. And during the first few reclears. Because like 1 month after Fork Tower's been out, it really won't matter, I don't think.
Okay. So it's a few early headaches, but a long term just not much of a concern. Do you think that's kind of true of almost all the problems that are with Fork Tower? Because it sort of was the case with BA, where almost all the problems were relevant to the first month, and they all disappeared because it just wasn't the new hotness anymore.
Probably. You're probably still going to have like instance prog issues just due to like, oh, there's not many people queuing in, so we keep getting split into the same instances. But I don't think there will be too much other issues relating to those aspects. There will probably still be like issues with like, oh, Machinist doesn't really have any Phantom jobs it likes to use. And,
it's all right.
And no
one
like
likes
that,
to use Machinist either, so it's even. It's
hey,
honestly, it might as well be a Phantom job.
That's how I cleared on Freelancer. Figured someone may as well get a Machinist clear.
But you went Machinist Freelancer. That's really gonna show.
But yeah, like I think most of the queuing issues are like, oh, people have low mastery. It's like you're gonna get mastery pretty quickly. You get like at least a full set relatively quickly if you just like do a few Cs every now and then, and like in a month or so, like most of these will be non-factors as issues in my eyes.
Yeah.
I will say, for all we know, Square might just be running a social experiment of like how many Pokemon can we get through. The other thing, fight design wise, from BA, I think BA had a few more. Some of the boss fights were a little more tough if you were pugging. I think this one, you can have 48 people. Half of them can die. You can still resolve every single mechanic perfectly if you're ready to do that. I don't know if that's the case in BA. It probably is the case, but it's definitely probably a little easier in the Fork Tower to lose half the entire raid and then still kill the boss.
I think that's evident even just when I talked about the clear that I was actually a part of, where we went from 45 down to 33, and it literally, like, the 33 people run was the smoothest run. So in some ways, it almost like it's kind of like what people used to say about 40-man raids and WoW. They were like, it's actually 15 people playing well and 25 idiots running around.
Yeah, that matches.
It's kind of like that. It's like, yes, the size is all those people are there and they're a part of it, but there's only a few people you really need. So yeah,
I'm really hoping we get to the point where we can pug and people just bring 2 tanks, 2 healers, and 4 DPS. And if you lose a tank, it's all good. If you lose a healer, it's probably all good. If you lose both tanks, you might have a problem. But
well, you can party shuffle in there too if there are other groups with like spare tanks. So that's another big thing to remember is you can party shuffle while you're inside to fix problems like that.
Yeah, we did that on the final boss a few times. Hey, my party doesn't have a knight. Can someone give us knight buff?
Yeah, you can even just pop over, do buffs like if you don't have a knight, just pop over, get buffs, swap back. Like you can do whatever. It's not like an actual instance where leaving the party means leaving the instance. It just means swapping a party.
Unless you click leave the instance.
Yeah. Unless you are so used to leaving parties by leaving instances in Occult Crescent that you just press the U button on your keyboard and click leave. We had a few people that did that, didn't they?
I think they were trying to return and they hit the button.
Oh, right. Yeah, they were trying to go back to the entrance of Fork Tower to like get a chest or, go look at something, and then they left. Right, that's what it was.
It was like hour 20s, so
Yeah, that was a long day.
Yeah, that's rough. Now, in terms of all that, do you think it was the right idea to do a BA equivalent instead of a CLL or a Dalriada equivalent, or to only have the BA equivalent, not maybe some sort of variable in between or like a normal Savage sort of like system in place?
I was surprised they chose to go with a BA for the first zone when there's no alternatives available. Because like for Eureka, BA was in the final zone, and while most people were in the final zone, a lot of people had 3 other zones they could play in. Whereas like here, it's in the first zone, so everyone is queuing into the exact same thing at the same time, which also increases the instance prog memes, I guess. So I was surprised. I feel like it might have been a better choice for the second zone than the first zone, but I don't have any issues with it being in the first zone, I guess.
I'm surprised they didn't just put it in the first zone and then give us a DRS again.
Do you mean like a CLL in the first zone or a BA? Yeah. Okay, yeah.
A CLL.
Yeah. Obviously I would prefer a BA, but I actually was surprised. I think a big complaint amongst people who aren't hardcore raiders, or at least don't really pay much attention to raid content, is that we've had a very raid-centric last few years of Final Fantasy XIV. If you look at Endwalker, it's packed. Most of the content is Criterion, 2 of the hardest ultimates we ever had. 3 Savage tiers, 3 Criterions even. A deep dungeon, which, not hardcore, but not everyone's trying to climb to 100 over and over again. It's leveling content for like the first 30 floors for most people. And there really wasn't much of anything other than the Alliance raid and the normal raids. And that's kind of happened again here in Dawn Trail, where they added Chaotic, in the middle of kind of a dry season for the average player after the expansion release, alongside an Ultimate a month before that with a Savage tier that came right before that, followed by another Savage tier right after that, which then, yes, had Cosmic, but then this is there as well. So it's like kind of that same problem where there's like this appeal to like probably about 20 to 25% at most of the player base who do like extreme trials on average. Like they're like kind of the upper limit of that. And then you kind of have to dig down a little bit lower even to find the people who are doing stuff like that versus something that everyone goes in and is a part of.
Yeah, I guess you can argue that, the Occult Crescent itself is the casual content in lieu of, the BA equivalent or, Fort Tower. And to go back to your original question, a little bit of devil's advocate here. If y'all are saying the difficulty of Fort Tower is kind of 24 man like instead of it being, DRS or BA, then I think that would probably be the reason why they didn't add a Dalriada equivalent, because they felt that the difficulty of Fort Tower itself was sufficient enough that it could stand on its own.
Yeah, like they thought it was pretty much a Dalriada, or
Yeah.
maybe a little harder.
Yeah.
Honestly, there are some points in CLL I'd be more afraid of wiping than in Fork Tower. Like the first boss on CLL with like randos in the zone it was memes like almost every time. Especially in the first like 2 weeks. You're like, boss health, check it, keep them even. Don't kill it too soon. You're like wiping it on the bottom. You look up and the top group's all fucking dead, or the other way around. Like there were all sorts of things. The third boss, what was the combination of elements on the third boss? If it was like water, earth, or something, it was like a fucking
Ice
disaster.
Earth?
Yeah, that's the one. Ice Earth. It was a fucking nightmare. Yeah, like you just had there are boss mechanics even in CLL and Dalriada that I'm more afraid of in Fork Tower. Yeah. So that's you might be right, Sly.
I almost feel like it's more a perspective thing, because I think a lot of those like extreme level gamers are just overly intimidated by it. I don't feel like Chaotic or Fort Tower is any harder than a single extreme fight, just that they require more players and look harder at the initial glance. So they're more intimidated by it than the difficulty of the content actually is.
Mm-hmm. The threat of the permadeath, I think, also instills a lot of fear. The limited lives.
Yeah. I don't even think the difficulty intimidates me. Like with something like Chaotic and something like this, the fear factor comes in with, as always with me, people.
People debuff.
Yeah.
Yep. The more people you have, the more chaos. Thus they called it chaotic. Yeah. Go figure. The more people you have, the more chaotic it can be. Chaos.
Got him on hand, baby.
Chaos.
Yeah. But I mean, that's going to happen in you're playing an MMO, right? Like at some point you have to just accept you can only work on yourself and you can't. There's a reason why some people get trapped in PF for months trying to clear a tier, and players can PF through it in a week or two. There's a difference between it. You people, because the people who just clear it, they are focusing on how they play and accepting every shit run that they get along the way. You often hear the people who take months, they either don't have as much time, which is fair, but a lot of the times you'll also hear how much it's about the other people that can't do mechanics. And it's like, you can't worry about, you just got to focus on you. And in Fort Tower, it's pretty much the same. If you focus on you and not screwing up you, then everything else just falls into place.
Yeah.
So, those are all the... Oh, sorry. You go.
I saw something in chat that I felt was a really good point. In Fort Tower, you need to chemist cheese to get a second attempt on a boss.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like possibly with this type of content, it wouldn't be a bad idea to have a respawn point where if there's a wipe, it auto respawns everyone that has a spare life.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's an absolutely fair compromise between the lives bit. The fact that you have so many lives, but you can only be resurrected via the chemist, or also is the healer LB3 was bugged, right? Where it was taking 2 lives. Did I remember that correctly?
Yeah, if you had a raise ready and you got heal LB, you lost 2 lives.
Okay, so specifically if you already had a raise. Okay, that's what it was. All right.
At least I think that's how it worked.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they fixed it when they fixed the bug raising, but yeah, I definitely remember losing 2 lives to a heal LB. Okay. I think on the clear.
Unfortunate time to lose 2 lives, but hey, it was a clear. Yeah, so I think that if you're going to give people spare lives, building a system that supports those lives being used no matter what I think is actually a good medium in between. Still let you use the res mid combat to eat a life, but also give you a fallback if you run completely out of, if everyone dies, but there's still lives left. I actually like that. I think that's probably one of the best take. I've not heard a single other person say that. So that's other than the lack of respawn points comment, and then you just mentioning that. So I think that's a really good place. That also would give people who are a little more afraid the confidence to go in and mess up. So it also kind of lowers the barrier for entry there too. Okay, well, Square, you heard that. You got 3 patches now to make it happen. If you're gonna steal the name of my show for 2 different fucking games, then you're gonna then you better be listening to this one right now. Listen, State of the Realm in 16 was fine, but now they also are doing it for Tactics. I can't accept that it's not. I can't accept the coincidence. All right. Now, we still have a little bit of time. As for the bosses themselves, how do you feel about the actual boss design in there? Not even from a difficulty standpoint, but from an actual, and you know what, I'll say encounter design. I'll include the hallways in this as well. How did you feel about that, especially when comparing it to BA and DRS and how they did sort of the in-between sections?
I did like it. I like that. I like that. If you aren't doing like alternate methods, they very clearly made at least one instance for every single phantom job to excel. For example, Geomancer levitating the traps. Geomancer has a dedicated purpose in the content. Every single job has a dedicated purpose somewhere in the Fork Tower. With the exception of Samurai, but that's because it just does big damage.
Go figure.
Throw a fucking brick through a wall.
Hey, damage is the most important form of utility in killing a boss.
Well, they also have the insta-kill. No, they do actually. Samurai,
Yeah.
because they can insta-kill the Anuki for that one ad if you don't want to use an Oracle.
Yeah, they can do that, or they can guaranteed hit the bats as well with Zenny. So like they have a use as like a secondary or a backup. I feel like within the fights, they did a decent job of making jobs useful as well. Like Bard was used on the 3rd boss. Time was used on the 1st and I think the 3rd. I guess I would have liked a little bit more of that, but I was happy with what they did in respect to interacting with phantom jobs and phantom actions.
I think it depends on how you see the content. Like, if you want it to be puggable, I think they did a very good job. Because I think we touched it multiple times already. Like, you don't actually need a lot of dedicated phantom jobs. You only need a few, so you can actually just bring whatever you want, and that increases the puggability of it. You could obviously go the other way. I think, as Q was saying at the end there, you can go the other way, and you can introduce more dispels. You can introduce a boss that just puts traps on the map during the boss fight, right? And you probably want a thief and a ranger doing stuff like that. I mean, it's sort of like Hallway 3, actually. Hallway 2, the bridge. It's sort of like that, except maybe they put traps randomly around the arena, and if you find them. So, sort of like the Minotaur in DRS, I think, actually.
Yeah,
I think
the Minotaur does that in DRS, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they could have gone that way, and it would have made it a lot less puggable, which it seems like is not their goal with the Fork Tower, because I think they're trying to bring BA down to a dollar. They sort of try to, find the middle ground between the CLL Dolariata and the BA, I think, is what their goal was with this Fork Tower. On the actual bosses, I think, again, if we look at it through this scope of puggable, I think they did a very good job with all the fight designs.
Going back to what you were saying about, having each job has its own place to shine. For for someone who maybe just started a cult and is planning on going into Fork Tower and they want to go in as soon as possible, do you think there is a set, not really set number, but like a bog standard, at least have these phantom jobs maybe leveled to kind of say, hey, you can do something at least? Like a list, like a set list of bog standard jobs, like not maybe all of them, but
Well, so normally for experienced players, they would have the experienced players on like the specific or like the touchy phantom jobs. So like Ranger or Berserker would normally go on a more experienced Fork Tower runner because they are less likely to wipe the raid if they mess up, because they're less likely to mess up. So for a new player, the better ones would actually be the ones that are less likely to make a mistake, or you just need more of them. So my recommendations personally in that aspect would be Chemist, Time Mage, and Cannoneer as like the three big ones. Because Chemist has a raise, you always want more Chemists, and you always want experienced players to they always want to be doing big damage. Like they're going in there because they can do fun stuff. So normally they'll want to get off Chemists, so more Chemists means more raises, means less likely to get kicked out and wipe. Time Mage, you just want a lot of Time Mages because there's a lot of places where you want to use slower dispel. Like I feel like Time Mage is the most front-facing, obvious, desired phantom job in the content, just because like the first boss has a dispel. There's multiple mobs and hallways that have dispels. You want every mob slowed in hallways, and stuff like that. And then Bard is just like, yeah, and you get a comet, which does big damage. Bard is just like AoE buffs. Just don't press Romeos when you're not told to.
Which is twice,
and then,
but
yeah, which is twice.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if I said it, but Cannoneer is just like, it does solid damage on every job and it doesn't cost gold. It's like Lesser Samurai plus trick plus reprisal permanently on whatever you're hitting.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Cannoneer would be at the top. I'd actually be a little depending on how many other Time Mages there are. I wouldn't want to be the only Time Mage if I was brand new, because if you forget to slow the ads in the hallway, let's just say people forget that slow cannot be on the enemies. So if you're if you're the only Time Mage on your side and you forget to slow, people are going to die out of complacency. Because it's just regular speed AoEs. But once you've experienced the slow AoE, you just want them all to be slow AoE. Yeah, I was going to say Bard. Bard was probably going to be number one. Because, like, just press a 4% damage buff every minute. And then during twos, press Hero's Rhyme or use it for, like, a big raid wide. Or both, if they line up, technically. So.
And then you have March as well, which is AoE Thrill.
Yeah, AoE through this March is great. March Rhyme, oh man, having 2 extra mitigations with the Bard Phantom job feels really nice.
Yeah, the only thing I'd really add or sort of compile is like everyone should pick a DPS job. So like, we did say like Monk, Samurai, or Cannoneer, I think, are your big ones. There are a few other niche ones, but you need a little more help doing those. But those are probably your easiest 3 DPS. So you pick one of those, whatever you're most comfortable with, and then you just start leveling the utility, I think. Probably start with Bard. I don't think the people who want to do damage like playing Bard because, right, you're not doing damage. You're helping the party do damage, which, Fizz range roll.
Ouch.
I'm a life Bard. I've been Bard. I keep ending up on Bard. I'll probably keep being Bard.
Yeah, you go down the utility list. Bard is definitely the easiest, and then Time Mage is probably the next easiest, and you just keep going down. Chemist, all of those things, and you definitely leave. I think Kyo said you leave the thief, the ranger, the berserker down at the bottom list, unless you really want to play them. You just really like playing those, or like, you know, some people like finding traps. Some people like blowing up traps. I will say though, if you're going to play ranger, people are banning ranger because they're not doing it well. They're blowing up traps when people are running by them. They're blowing up unstables, even if you can see them, etc. Right? If you're going to play ranger, you pretty much have to have the same experience as a thief. If you don't know where the traps are, you shouldn't be playing ranger.
Yeah.
Another small caveat is chemist, in addition to like having the guaranteed res, is also the least experience of any phantom job to get to mastery.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's a free mastery point.
Yeah, and you don't need mastery to do the res either. You only need level 3, which is almost nothing. So the barrier for entry there is really, really low. And Bard also, just to even like to get to Romeo's, which is the only required thing, is also not very far. And you will have 1% damage, 2%, 3%, depending on your job level. It's 1% per job, which a lot of people missed. A lot of people didn't read the trait. That your buff goes from 1 to 4% as you level the job. It's not from the gear. Don't bait me in my chat again, please.
Yeah, Bard's another low XP. That was the first one I leveled actually, is Bard, and it's another one in the band of like really low XP to level. And you get the Romeo at level 2, which is literally 1 CE after equipping Bard. And that's all you need.
That's it. Yeah, and you'll have a 2% damage buff to boot. Just really can't go wrong there. All right. Is there any favorite boss? Any favorite design section that they can only exercise here in the field ops? Whether it be a boss, a trash pull, that you feel like this type of content really excels in making?
I haven't looked at logs yet, so I really want to see if like I played Bard as well, and I was trying to multi-dot the second boss like while it was targetable to see if it still ticked, and I haven't checked if I got damage from that yet or not. But I really liked the second, was it Imitation Star on boss 3, where a lot of people got debuffs and then they got stunned and you had to break them out during 2s. I feel like that's that sort of aspect or like design choice where you have group A do one thing and then group do another thing that is based off of what group A did. I feel like those sort of interactions aren't super common in most of their content, and I like that they included it, even if it was as basic as that. I like that aspect of it. And boss 4 was just good large man design, I feel.
I think all the bosses are. I think in Prague, they're all fairly engaging, but then you start realizing like the first boss, the demon wall, is not very
Don't
engaging.
say it. Don't ruin rotate left and right. Don't do it.
But I think between the other 3 bosses, I sort of have a soft spot for the second one because it sort of reminds me of Queensguard from DRS, and I think Queensguard was actually a very good fight. And then they actually made a cameo back, you know, when you actually fought the Queen and the Queensguard came back. And I actually think that was a very good thematic addition to the DRS. I'd actually like to see more of that happen. Although we do see the trio return, so maybe they'll make a guest appearance in the next, or whatever the next one is. But yeah, I think that one is definitely the most fun, I would say. And then Magitar is probably next on the list because Magitar is just, you're sort of there, you're at the end, and you just have to kill it. And I don't know, it's not super difficult, but it's definitely a little more stressful, because you never know who is going to get what, and you never know whether or not they're going to do what they need to do correctly.
Yeah.
And a lot of its big mechanics are very visually deceptive.
Yeah. There's a lot of moments where there's 2 or 3 visuals you need to be paying attention to at once. Whether or not you, like, if you have a debuff, it's 1 extra. And it's very easy to just move early because you see a visual happen and you're like, oh, now it's time. No, don't do it. You're gonna kill everyone.
Yep, like
Especially in
that,
like
or like
Holy Lance or Rune Axe or stuff like that.
Holy Lance is great because the spear disappears after the ground AoE pulses for that spear count. So if you see the last spear in your square disappear, you're too slow. You need to count the ground pulses instead.
Yeah. I think probably in terms of Runex is a deceptively weird like delay between waiting for things, with the first one on the outside and then the person on the insides dropping it, and then the boss dropping them inside right after. Like everyone sees the inside one's pulse and they think, oh, I can go there now. I can go into Northwest, but you can't. You have to wait that one extra bit. The assassin dagger delay, probably the biggest killer in that entire thing. Yeah, there's a
It's
lot
just
of
innocent swords.
very innocent. Yeah, very very innocent.
There's also the random autos during the Rune X where you're like, oh, I lost HP. Did I do something wrong? But it's just a random auto hitting you. There's 16 random autos.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of weird stuff in there. Magitar is just a really impressively designed fight. I feel it's nice because I remember DRS, the design of the bosses, while it's all pretty like recognizable. You know, first boss is like Ravana Plus, you know, for example. But they usually have some really interesting designs. While they didn't go nearly as frilly or flashy here as they do with stuff like Super Chess, for example, in DRS, or even some of the reflection shenanigans in the final boss there. Everything still kind of stands on its own and impresses visually to the point where it feels more engaging than maybe the fight actually is. Even true of the Demon Tablet, I think, seeing the double stacked gravity AoEs as you're resolving, like that looks intimidating when you see 6 stack markers and 2 of them are way in the fucking sky. But it boils down to such a simple execution that, again, it shouldn't really be too intimidating.
I actually had a question
Sure.
for all of you. We kind of talked about this last time in regards to the, I guess, occult bosses, but not forked. And I'm gonna kind of leave out Demon Tablet because it's obvious, because it's a fucking wall. Whereas, you know, Dead Star and the Dragon aren't Omni, but Magitar is. How do y'all feel about Magitar being Omni?
I think it's necessary, honestly, just due to the way they designed the fight to have players sectioned off into specific tiles where they're each specific way around the boss. I think the only way they could make that have positionals and be engaging would be to have like sub positionals where they have like an awkward multi-cut ring where like they have 2 rear positionals on opposite sides of the boss or something, and then like smaller flank positionals which would require like a separate indicator to identify whether or not it's a flank. But I feel like the Omni was a good choice there.
Okay. I know like some people feel differently about, you know, having, you know, certain bosses or mobs be Omni.
I mean, it could have not been, I think. Because 2 of the platforms have access, I believe, to the back and the flank. If you face the boss properly. So I mean, it's hard to say. I think I don't know if it was a good or bad choice. It's definitely good for pugging, if we go back to my little pugging scope. But yeah, for Opti, I definitely think it's less engaging for sure.
Okay.
Just have each
I was distracted
each party
by
donate a
cat.
range Northwest so that the melee can get uptime.
Yeah, I mean, there's solutions. I was honestly just kind of more. I just was surprised they didn't Omni more. I just thought with the way the content, just being a field up, I thought it would probably have moved to just Omni overall. So I didn't really think about it too much because I wasn't playing Monk or anything like that here.
Yeah.
So, and I think they just kept it the same. I think it's just, honestly, I think it's just part of their mission statement with wanting positionals and like boss rings small. I think it's just trying to stay consistent, and that Magitar, basically for the reasons they just said, the way that the boss position technically possible, but it just makes more sense to make it omnidirectional.
One other little tidbit, and I kind of should have brought this up earlier in regards to the content, like Occult and Fort Tower as a whole, comparing it to Bajda, where Bajda had these whole individualistic pieces of content where you had the duels, and then even in the, I guess, DRS you had the solo duel. Do you think Occult and Fort Tower would have benefited from something individualistic?
I just wanted duels in the zone.
Yeah.
I miss duels, man.
Building for duels.
A lot of people wanted duels,
I
but
love duels.
For both.
So I don't know about Fort Tower specific. I think that with Fort Tower, just due to the way Occult Crescent is designed, where everything is locked into your one specific phantom job and not like essences and actions where you can customize your holster and have like specific things so you can have like a duelist holster. I think that like there's less appeal to a duel within the Fort Tower due to that. Though I could see like a sub duel where it can hold like 4 people and you have like 4 designated people do a mini fight. I could see value in something like that, and I think that would be really cool design within the Fort Tower. But I would love duels in the open world, especially if they like their bonus was like 50% bonus silver or something for winning.
Oh god, yes. Or gold.
Yeah, bonus silver for a duel. I hadn't even thought about the actual like buff that you get from being around someone when they win a duel. But now that you said that, I'm like, oh no, we really fucking needed duels.
Yeah, open world duels definitely, I think, they definitely missed on that. It's a fun little.
They even kept they even kept the infinite duration bone stacks. It's like you had the whole system there.
I will say in the tower, I don't think is very engaging, because at the end of the day, the same person is going to go in every time. The same 3 people will probably go in every now and then.
Yeah.
So it's not really. I wouldn't say it's super engaging. They're obviously in your community. You can have ways to make it so it's not the same people all the time. But like, yeah. It's fun. It's definitely fun to prog. Definitely fun to watch your friend, go through the duel, mess up, all that. But at the end of the day, once you're on reclear, once the content's found out, explored well enough, it doesn't have much engagement, especially if you try to do a puggable thing.
Yeah, the puggable bit definitely kills it a whole lot if you ever wanted to do that, because you need a dueler 100% of the time for any of that. I think if it picked 4 people out of all the parties and made them do a boss, probably be better. If it just like, if it was something that was designed like the Quarantine in A4, where it picks a tank and a DPS or something. If it picked like a tank, a healer, and 2 DPS to do the mini fight, and you can't decide who it is, so everyone kind of has to know it. Everyone has to potentially be ready to engage with it. Makes prog a little bit rougher if someone's never gotten it before, but I think if you're that's like a medium between the two, is just not being able to assign the people who have to do it.
Or like, imagine if it was like a boss similar to like Variant, how Variant has like bosses where they have 3 different mechanics and which one's based on your route.
Yeah.
Imagine if it picked like 4 specific phantom jobs. However, the collection of 4 phantom jobs it could pick depended on what mechanics that boss had. So it picked 4 random people with those 4 phantom jobs.
Yeah. Oh, so if you fight a mimic, fight a mime in there, and he mimes the jobs and uses their actions. There you go. Hey, Go-Go, the mime job is from Final Fantasy V. Go-Go, that's where Go-Go's from. So he, I know that we have a different Go-Go in our game, but where is he? I have a Go-Go right here somewhere. Where is he? I know I have a Go-Go card. There it is. Yeah, there you go. See? The boy. This is the Final Fantasy VI Go-Go, but who cares? Now, before we wrap up, I have one last thought I want to get from you guys. Obviously, we've talked a lot about how these jobs are all useful in the Fork Tower. There is a dedicated spot, and that's really cool. But do you think they maybe over-indexed on making them useful in the Fork Tower at the detriment of how they feel to people not in the Fork Tower? Thief being a very solid example.
Thief is actually, I have a actually funny story. My friend in my group, we saw Thief, right? And people were buying the gold jobs, and we had enough gold to buy a job. And he's like, I'll buy the Thief. I'll play the Thief. He buys the Thief, and we look at the kit, and it looks terrible, right? It looks absolutely terrible outside of looking for traps and stuff. But he said he was going to play Thief. And it turned out that he can come back for like 3 days until like the weekend or something. So we actually didn't have a Thief for the second day. We had to like wait a bit for people to level to 6. Although we probably could have just gone in with level 4 Thief. So, in any case, Thief is definitely one of the big offenders in this case. Like, you hit the button once and then you do nothing else for the rest of the fight. And you bring it to CEs. It's
and that skill doesn't even work on some of the CEs. Like sometimes vigilance just doesn't work.
Oh, that's very unlucky.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've definitely like pressed vigilance and queued in the CE and lost the buff, or like queued into the CE, had that 10-second timer, press and like wasn't able to press the button at all, and it wasn't on cooldown.
Yeah. I've watched vigilance just fall off and not give me the buff like plenty of times while I was leveling Thief. No, even in gold farming, you don't care about Thief. You just get ninjas because ninja has AoE steal.
Ninjas,
Yeah.
I would say chemist. Chemist is probably not fun on anything that can raise. It's okay on DPS, but like I think on tank you'll probably have the most fun on chemist. But then again, you're playing a raised job, and I don't think the community actually likes playing raised jobs too much, especially when it's randoms you're raising every now and then.
Hey, when there's a 500 raise achievement, people pick it up pretty quick.
This is true.
Until they're done with it, and then they say, "Fuck those guys, I'm not done." Yeah. I think what's another one? There's definitely which one?
Well, I was just gonna say in general, I don't feel like they over-indexed into Fork Tower with the jobs so much as they under-indexed the jobs in the overworld of Occult Crescent.
Yeah.
And that's why I felt the way I felt when we talked about this last time. It was like, yeah, you have all this creativity, but outside of like, it feels like it's kind of geared more for Fork Tower. I mean, yeah, you can do some cool shit out in the Occult Crescent, but yeah, it feels like they're mainly tuned for Fork Tower.
Like within the caverns, imagine if there were like hidden rooms that a thief could discover in the caverns that would appear every now and then randomly.
Yeah,
for example.
Nice. Yeah, that'd be nice. Even if there were like certain like fates or CEs that were locked behind doors. So first day, maybe you just can't get to them. Second day, Thief in the Zone unlocks the door. Now the fates and CEs that can start spawning in the Citadel or something. The only other application I've seen for Thief, we had someone who didn't have Warrior leveled for gold farming. And so they went Dark Knight and they went Dark Knight Thief. And they would start pulling their mobs, and instead of involving, they would just hit sprint and let the mobs chase behind them while the cannoneers. That was the only application I ever saw for Thief, really, outside. I thought it was creative.
Same. Like, I see a lot of jobs that can be used for gold farming, like in different ways. Like I see people sometimes use Bard in gold farming because like the tank will pull everything, and then instead of involving, you just stun all the mobs. And they're stunned until for like 6 seconds or something, and all the cannons are off by then.
Mm-hmm.
But not every job is useful in gold farming, and outside of gold farming, you're just hitting fates and CEs. So there's just a lot of like job actions or jobs in general that don't feel that great to play outside of Fork Tower.
Yeah, because there's no like Flare Star and there's no Reflect. Like, sure, you can float over some AoEs in, the Many Men Fate or something like that, but there's not really those, oh, cool, the job I'm playing has its moment thing much in OC itself.
Yeah, that plus the fact that you're forced to play it to level it. It's not like, oh, I hit a certain knowledge level. Now I can transform these fragments into actions and I can equip this action whenever I want. You don't do that. You're locked behind playing a job to level it, regardless of how competent it is in a CE, in order to get all the abilities to use it in Fork Tower.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That was the last little bit I wanted to touch up on. So, I'd say that makes a show. With 8 minutes to spare, you can get to your PoE in time. I can get ready for dinner. That's gonna be perfect. Good, because I am hungry. But that was a great discussion. I'm glad you guys agreed to come on. Like 2 days notice is good enough, thankfully.
God damn it! Thank you so much.
2 days notice.
Yeah,
Well,
no worries.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it was great. Before we get going, you guys just want to do a quick little outro. Is there anything you want to say as like a final note, a shout out to yourself or anyone else? You know, the usual, you know, we're wrapping up goodbyes and whatnot. We'll start with you, Kyo.
Shout out to my static. A majority of them were with us for the entirety of Prague and have cleared. Particularly Yeji, who is my actual static lead and who heartlessly got kicked into a different party for every day after the first, who managed to solo heal that party for the entire time.
Okay. All right. Any like social shout outs or anything too here if you even care. I don't think either of you really do much in the way of social.
I don't really. I stream my Prague and occasionally my Reclairs on Twitch every now and then. KYOSHIRIN, Kyoshirin on Twitch. And then I'm on Twitter and Bluesky as Kyo Shinrin with an extra N in the middle.
Yeah. All right, thanks. Lyle, how about you?
I think all I have to say is I really appreciate the entire team, everybody. The 48 people I found, the people who stayed, I really do thank them for staying. And the people who I voluntold to become party leads, really appreciate that they didn't, that they were okay with it, and I hope they had fun with it. I will say though, if people are apprehensive of going to the tower, I think you should just go. You know, it's gonna be a fun time. You get to play your phantom job, and just nothing to be scared of. Really, you wipe them. You know, it's gonna happen. Oh, hopefully it doesn't happen, but you know, it'll happen if it does. It is what it is.
Yeah,
it's not the end of the world. Yeah,
no.
Yeah. We had people who were experienced who wiped us, who had been in there.
It
happens.
I think we had 3 party leads wipe us in the span of like 4 days, and those were like the only wipes.
More than once.
Oop. I guess there's a reason why my entire chat before the show started was like, get the Kyo clip of X, get the Kyo clip of Y, get the bridge incident.
I'm very good at making memorable mistakes exactly once, where everyone can see them.
And do snowball incident there. My favorite was we had somebody ethereal manipulation during Fireball and was like half a second too late, and it just like blasted through the entire room. That was my favorite one. I was like, whoa, what was that? Just like, but not fast enough. Yeah, no, thanks for thanks for coming on the show, and thanks for putting it together. Like I said, I didn't really have anything planned for it, so last minute I just went to Lyle and I was like, if you guys are doing anything and you have a spot, you know, I didn't really have time to get anything planned. And I like that you prioritize the 48 people first. I think, again, a lot of people have a misperception about when streamers try to do content. They still have to do what every other raider does for the most part. And that after that, you just said yes. It was great because I enjoyed doing chaotic with the same group of people. So, you know, shrunk down to 24. So it was good to get to do that again another patch later. So that's my thank you. So appreciate it.
I mean, reach out for the next one.
Next chaotic, right? When they do another chaotic next patch.
And
chaotic, chaotic Ozma. No, not chaotic Ozma. Chaotic Thunder God Sid. We'll just skip ahead. Chaotic Diablos.
Chaotic. All right. Chaotic Criterion. Let's go. Won't happen.
The
Doesn't make
tripwires
sense.
we're doomed with the tripwires. You know that, right? We're doomed with the. Oh my god, a 24-player dartboard. Oh,
Imagine
oh.
all the chains.
No, I don't want to imagine those chains, bro. I still have nightmares about the wall there. The wall has hands. That wall reaches out and pulls you in somehow. There's a pixel that's somewhere off the wall that I don't know where it is. All right. Yes, thank you to both of you. Appreciate it short term. Sly, let's do our sign off and we can let both of them go.
Sounds good. Again, thank you both so much for coming by on such short notice because Happy is really good at that.
Or bad at it if you think the other way.
For myself, you can find me at twitch.tv/Sly, aka Gray Fox, Twitter, Sly, aka Gray Fox, Blue Sly, Blue Sky, can't even say it. Sly, aka Gray Fox. As far as like what's coming up, next week is Rido, and I will be
today.
I
thought Rido was. Someone in my chat said Rido was today.
Ooh, Rido is next week.
Okay.
And I actually have an official Rido cape and hat that I'll be wearing during my playthrough. Thanks, Atlas. Really appreciate it. Other than that, really soon, I guess. Within about a month, less than a month actually. My birthday is coming up, so I will be doing a birthday celebration. I kind of already teased it on Twitter last Saturday. If you want to go check it out. But we will have my big birthday party event on July 5th. So the first Saturday of July. And then July 3rd, I'm just going to be old and drink bourbon on stream and play video games. So hopefully y'all will be there for it.
Sounds good.
But yeah, that's pretty much it for me. Happy?
Yeah. Before I did, so funny. Someone mentioned, so I saw the word Sudoku in chat, and whenever I say commit seppuku, I usually say commit Sudoku.
Sudoku.
But when but with Starfall, everyone said, "That's it. I'm tired. Commit Starfall."
Yeah.
I like that. That was a new one for me. I'm committing Starfall right now. Yep. Yeah. No. Mr. Happy 1227, all the usual platforms, just getting back into the rhythm of things after what has been a very chaotic, last 6 weeks or so. The chaos isn't all the way over for me, but it's starting to get back to feeling a bit more normal for everything, health-wise, and, now being in a brand new location that is very far from the initial one, and Ivy being here with me. There you go. See? Ivy. Hi. Oh, there you go. Finishing a Final Fantasy V 4-job fiesta in the next day. Decided to do that with all the Occult Crescent. I felt very much like hitting up Final Fantasy V, which is where all of this stuff comes from. And then after that, there's a handful of things. We have a live letter next week. We are doing a live letter, State of the Realm, next week. Sly, go ahead. Put the normal time in your calendar this week, unless Rido is going to get in the way
Got it.
somehow.
No, it won't.
And then, we're going to be keeping an eye on, because the official launch of the open beta, I should say, which is basically the soft launch of the mobile title in China, is happening on the 23rd. So there's going to be a lot of news to follow regarding that. There's already been some news. There's some creators popping up from the Chinese scene who are covering the live letters and whatnot, and the recent news. So keep an eye out for a lot of that. We're going to be seeing how the game shapes up to be over the next several months before we get the global release at who knows when. But that's for 14 news, and then I'm probably just going to be, for now, just chilling for the most part. Just getting my 14 time in, getting some Final Fantasy time in. Maybe I'll get back to some Platinum time as well. I still need to do the rest of my Platinums. I have my Itadeki Street. I have my Crisis Core and all that other stuff, Type 0 and everything to do. So fun times ahead. But anyway, that's going to be a wrap for this week's episode of State of the Realm. Thank you to everyone for watching. Be sure to check out the card shop link and the Steel Series link in the description as well. Be sure to support them. And thanks again to the patrons for supporting as they do. We're going to go into a very short post show, like a minute or two, just to say final goodbyes to each other and to chat. And then we will see you next week for the live letter. So thanks again to our guests for joining. Sly, always good to have you as well, fellow co-host. And we'll see you next week. Until then, bye-bye.
See you next week.